in Moscow tonight. Dmitry Babich is a political analyst and journalist at Voice of Russia. Well, good evening to you all. Thanks for being with us. Now, let's take a quick look, first of all, at some facts and figures. First of all, I can tell you that the Levada Centre says that Vladimir Putin currently enjoys a 67% approval rating. That's up 3 points from last month. That's been quoted by Forbes magazine. But we can also have a look now at his handling of the economy. Now, here we go. This is Russian GDP from 2002 to 2011. As you can see, it's grown exponentially with a small blip after the financial crisis. I think we can also have a look at unemployment as well. Oh, no, we can look at foreign investment first of all. There we go. Also, as you can see, rose hugely after the collapse of the Soviet Union and then fell in 2010. And we can also have a look now at unemployment in Russia under Putin. No, we can't. But anyway, I think we've got the picture. George, it's very important to Putin, isn't it, that the economy keeps doing well so he can enjoy these pretty impressive levels of support among the general population?
Well, more than that, he has an enormous amount of infrastructure work to do. And the price of oil has to remain above a certain level for a balance of the economy. He has to, as any political leader, has to have a good economy. And so far, so good for him up to this moment. The foreign direct investment, I don't know what that is a reflection of, but so far, so good.
Well, there are reports that investors are being scared off, Dmitry Babich. They're leaving Russia in droves because they are worried about corruption. And Putin himself admits this is a big problem in Russia, isn't it?
Well, everyone admits that corruption is a problem in Russia, just like in many other countries of the world. But I have been hearing that investors are leaving in droves for about 20 years since we started having foreign investors in Russia. Hopefully some will stay.
Well, Transparency International ranks Russia as one of the most corrupt countries on earth. It's currently at around 116, so it's not like all other countries, is it? There is a big problem.
Well, I think that I have big questions about the organizations that make these ratings.
Transparency International?
Transparency International, exactly. I interviewed their representatives in Moscow very often, and, their methods of research seem very, very doubtful to me. If indeed things were that bad and investors would be leaving Russia in droves, that would be somehow reflected in the GDP and other, signs of economic performance. I'm not an economist, but I have been hearing doomsday scenarios for many years. I have been hearing doomsday scenarios about Belarus, which is, a country just like Portugal, 10 million people. But look, Belarus has got a loan from Russia for $3 billion, and it's coping more or less all right. And Portugal, the same size, got from the EU 96 billion euros and asked for more.
Yeah, but the GDP per capita of Portugal is infinitely higher than it is in Belarus or Russia.
That's exactly true, but also the corrupt nature of the European economy, where you have to do everything on credit, where huge loans are being given, and where you have lots of bad assets because of that. So every country has its problems. I would not say that Russia or Belarus are so much worse than the other European countries.
But it's not just Transparency International and the Western people who say about that. It was Andrei Makarevich, the Russian, very famous singer. The day before yesterday, he wrote a letter to Mr. Putin saying that today the retro commissions for the businessmen to the apparatchiks, corrupted apparatchiks, go until 70% and sometimes to 90%. And Mr. Putin reacted. So it's not only Transparency International who speaks about corruption in Russia, and Mr. Makarevich, who is not a critic of Putin at all.
But I want to come back to these approval ratings, Nina Berezhina. I mean, that is a pretty impressive approval rating for Putin, considering he's been the president now for 3 times. He was the prime minister in the interim. He's been running the country. I think he's Russia's longest-serving leader since Stalin, isn't he? I mean, he doesn't seem to be going anywhere fast. But is it the case that to most Russians, prosperity and security is in fact more important than what we consider important in the West, values, civil rights, free speech, that kind of thing?
Yes, I think it used to be this way, but I think people are now starting to wake up, and we can probably see it from what's been going on in Russia in the last year, in the last even few years. But intensively, it only started in December after the parliamentary election. And going back to the corruption case, I think the elections, the presidential and in the parliament, I think it illustrates the corruption in Russia. That's how it is. I think you can see it.
And is that Putin's fault?
Well, many say yes, many say no. I guess we can never know, but as far as I'm concerned, I would probably say yes.
Well, he's president.
But this shows the uphill battle that these activists have, doesn't it? I mean, they need to convince them to join their cause, and it is quite dangerous. We've seen a lot of people arrested. We've seen a lot of people fined. Now there's a new law, isn't there, that the average fine for taking part in a demonstration could be as much as $40,000. I mean, that would be off-putting to most people, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. A few weeks ago, you had a panel on Russia, and one of your colleagues was here, a young man, and there was an observer who said, don't complain about the elections, just go out and win. Well, the problem is you're running a 100-yard dash, or a 100-meter, and one candidate has no restrictions, has all the press, has all the television, and the others are carrying 25-pound blocks of concrete. And when the observer who was sitting at that place said that, I wanted to scream. It's not a free election.
Well, I think most people would struggle to name another candidate, wouldn't they?
Well, there was a guy who owns a basketball team in New Jersey. I know that.
Yeah. But part of Putin's appeal, Inga, is his strongman image, isn't it? I mean, he's this ex-KGB man, and he's promised to restore Russia to its former glory. And it has to be said that Russia does have a lot of sway on the world stage right now, particularly given events that are going on in Syria. I mean, in one respect, he has done what Russians wanted. He's restored their pride.
I don't know, because today we are proud, maybe, that we are not friends with Polish because they don't have religion, I don't know what anymore. But the usual allies of Russia were Poland, were Romania, Greece, all those Orthodox countries. And today the main allies are Syria, Iran, North Korea, so all those countries banned by the Concert of the Nations. I don't know if really that means restoration of the growth. People are afraid of us. That's true. But maybe I always thought that the way to develop for Russia would be go with Europe, with European values, because it's a Christian country. It's not a country like Syria, who has religious leadership, or Korea, who has a totalitarian regime like Stalin was. It's a democracy. That's what I would like Russia to be. So I don't know who can say that it was restoration of some kind of good shape of Russia.
Okay, let's talk a bit about Alexei Navalny. I'm sure you know who he is. He's an anti-corruption lawyer. He's also a blogger.
Can I just make two corrections here, because there were several important mistakes. First, when you said that Putin was the longest-serving Russian leader after Stalin, that's a mistake. The longest-serving was Brezhnev with 18 years. Putin is now on his 9th year. Second, North Korea is not an ally of Russia.
But he's been in power for 12 years, hasn't he? As either president or prime minister. So it depends on how you look at it.
President and prime minister are different things. We're talking about the leader of Russia.
Well, some people said that.
He's on his 9th year.
I think most people accept that Dmitry Medvedev wasn't running Russia when he was president. I mean, I think that's genuinely accepted by most Russians, along with most people in the world.
Even if we take it with Medvedev, Brezhnev still beats him 18-12. Then with North Korea and Iran, they are not allies of Russia, neither officially nor in fact. Russia participates in sanctions against Iran, but Russia, of course, doesn't support the possibility of a military strike against Iran, and I think many peaceful people in the West agree with that attitude. Syria does not have a religious leadership. It's the West that is helping the Sunni rebels there, who are going to establish perhaps a religious leadership there, make it a Muslim fundamentalist country. And I think these are very important corrections, because basically when people talk about Russia in the West, they always rush to negative generalizations which do not stand up to critique.
Well, I'm sorry if you thought it was a negative criticism there, but this is a debate and people all have views and they're entitled to express those views. Let's talk about Alexei Navalny, all right, anti-corruption blogger. Now, this is someone who's got a lot of support online. He's managed to, it seems that he's managed to strike fear into the heart of Vladimir Putin, because now he's also in trouble with police, isn't he? For apparently stealing timber. Now, a lot of people in the West find this quite incredulous.
I think it's pretty much the same as with Khodorkovsky, who stole his own oil.
Yeah.
Now it's Navalny who steals his own forest. And what's next? Basically, I think everybody who goes against Putin eventually ends up in jail or dead. Sadly, like it happened with Politkovskaya, for example, who was a journalist on Chechnya and a critic of Putin as well.
Dmitry Babic, is it complete? Is there absolutely nothing to do with it at all? These two men both challenged Vladimir Putin, and now they're both. One of them has been behind bars for 13 years, and another one's been accused of stealing timber.
Well, with Navalny, it's a complicated story because he is accused of wrongly advising the governor of the region, Mr. Belikh. And Belikh has always been a very outspoken opponent of Putin, and despite that, he is now a governor of a very important region. So it's not everyone who ends up in prison or dead.
That's good to know. Not everyone, then. Not everyone.
Yes. And with Khodorkovsky, I would like to add that there was a sudden change of attitude of the Western press to him when he turned against Mr. Putin in 2003. Until 2003, he was a corrupt oligarch, a former deputy minister of energy, who suddenly became the richest person in Russia. You know, we're talking about corruption under Putin. We may talk about corruption under Yeltsin in the 90s, which was much worse.
And who's now the richest person?
Suddenly he became a hero after 2003. He stopped to be a corrupt oligarch. He became a saint. You know, I don't believe in such transfigurations.
Yes, and who is now the richest person? Is it Mr. Abramovich, who is very close to Mr. Putin, or maybe it's Mr. Putin himself? You know, certain politologists like Stanislav Belkovsky pretend that Mr. Putin is not only the richest person in Russia, but the richest person in the world. And all those palaces and everything they built. But another thing, you say that Khodorkovsky, he was a bad person. It's not enough to put somebody in prison. It's not enough that he was corrupted or something. You can't just declare somebody like this and to put person. It's like in the process of the Pussy Riot, the motive was proven according to the words of the witnesses. You can't prove a motive of a criminal only with the witnesses. You have to report your proofs.
Well, with Khodorkovsky, there was a trial, and
yes, I was there on the trial.
Yes, if you think he was innocent, how could he become the richest person in Russia in a matter of several years? I don't know
if he's innocent and how Mr. Putin became the richest person in Russia. Maybe he's not innocent too.
Mr. Putin is not the richest person in Russia.
And who is the richest person in Russia? Abramovich.
Officially, Mr. Abramovich.
Why he's free? Why he's not in prison?
He obviously became rich in a manner largely reminiscent of the way Mr. Khodorkovsky became rich. A lot of Russians, I would say the majority of Russians, do not approve of these ways of becoming rich. But let's wait. Maybe justice will also come for Mr. Abramovich. It already came for Mr. Khodorkovsky because, indeed, everyone remembers how he got hold of all of these oil assets.
And he lost him.
Just a regular Komsomol apparatchik in the late 80s.
And how he lost him.
What about the lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky? He was a corporate lawyer. He worked for Hermitage Capital, an investment bank. He was investigating what he thought was tax fraud. All of a sudden, he was arrested and beaten and later died in custody. I mean, what about that one, Dmitry?
Well, I think it's a very unfortunate story. And there was an investigation. There is an investigation going on. But there is something absurd going on around it because in the so-called Magnitsky list, which the State Department is probably going to publish soon, They have 60, and some people will say even more than 100 names. And they say that these were all officials involved in his mistreatment. I don't know how you can accuse so many people and how you can plan to seize their assets in the United States without having any sort of trial or without even wanting to cooperate with the Russian authorities. Who can prove that these people indeed were guilty?
Yeah, but with this list, there are published.
And with Mr. I will just finish. And with
bank
Mr.
accounts.
Browder, the employer of Mr. Magnitsky, the problem is that Mr. Browder turned against Mr. Putin only after he had problems and after he had to leave the country. Before that, he said that Putin was the hope of Russia. I quote Mr. Browder from 2005.
Yeah, but everybody knows that Mr. Browder was a supporter of Putin on some time, but it's not the question here. The question is that with the Magnitsky case, the Magnitsky list were published documents. It's the bank accounts of Credit Suisse, where you can see the bank accounts of the corrupted members of the Ministry of Interior of Russia who were accused by Magnitsky of stealing the Russian budget money, and we see them on these bank accounts buying hotels in Montenegro, etc., etc.
The thing is, Dmitry Babich, you've got to see how it is seen from the West. When you've got people like Alexei Navalny, one minute he's criticising the government, the next minute he finds himself in trouble with police. You've got some girls who burst into a church and said that Putin should be taken out by the Virgin Mary. They're then in jail. I mean, you've got to admit, it looks a bit ridiculous.
Well, I think that that's the problem. In today's world, in modern world, you can, if you repeat something, you can make people believe it. You know, about these bank accounts, your colleague has rightly said that these people were accused by Magnitsky. They have not yet been found guilty by any court. Let's have a trial, and then we can say that.
Well, we'll never know
guilty.
because he's dead, isn't he? So that one isn't going to be resolved anytime soon. But we're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time on the debate. Dmitry Babich in Moscow, thank you very much indeed. Nina Berezina, thank you to you. Inga Waterlot and George Frederick Dewsbury, thank you to you as well. And of course, thanks to you for watching. That wraps things up for the debate tonight. Annette Young will be here in the hot seat with you tomorrow. So look out for that one. That's next.